All right. Well, we'd like to welcome everybody out to October's Orem Business Alliance webinar. Today, we're going to be hearing from Logan Wilkes from Truss. He's going to be talking to us about small business networking amidst the pandemic. So first off, we just want to introduce some of us. So I'm Nate Prescott. I work for the city and I help run the Orem Business Alliance with Kathy Lewis, who is the City of Orem's Economic Development Division Manager, and she's also helping to run the Orem Business Alliance. So, and on this call with us as well is Peter Jay. He's the Economic Development Director for Utah Valley University, and he runs the Business Resource Center. So he's a great resource. He's someone that we refer a lot of businesses to when they're small businesses need help with lots of different things. We refer them to the BRC, the Business Resource Center. So we're going to get into our meeting, and I'm going to introduce Logan to everyone. Also, Logan, I took the liberty to change your name on there so that people won't be confused when they look up and see a different name. So,
just make the intro short. You don't have to read that whole thing.
Oh no, I mean, I changed your name on your Zoom account picture.
Yeah, I got it.
So, all right. So Logan was born in Portland, Oregon. It's a great place. I love Oregon. And he lived there until he moved to Utah to attend BYU. While at BYU, Logan traveled extensively. He visited 8 different countries, and he worked closely with their political leaders, news media, universities, and business owners. Through these experiences, he discovered and developed his love for people, travel, and events. And so that's what led him to, it was probably a great experience for his degree in public relations. So after he graduated with his degree in public relations, he worked for a Utah-based PR firm, managing several different brands. And then he hit the ground running at the Corporate Alliance in 2009. The Corporate Alliance was really big for a long time here in Utah County. He became an owner in the company and president of the Utah County Hub 1 year later. He relocated to San Diego for nearly 2 years to help with the global expansion of Corporate Alliance. He returned to Utah in 2015 and became the company's COO, and he married the beautiful Ashley Masters. In January of 2019, Logan managed to sell the Corporate Alliance. He developed a new brand and vision for Truss. Logan is super excited about the new vision and direction of Truss. He loves his wife, his son Jack, in traveling, golf, college football, basketball, music, theater, and food. And he's an avid Portland Trailblazers fan. So that's Logan. Logan, we're so happy to have you here. Thanks for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you. I should probably take that last sentence out of my bio, because usually it irks Utah Jazz fans when they hear that right at the end. No, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and mostly for Melanie and anybody else that's watching this later. This is a weird time. It's a really weird time, and it is really, and you guys are all watching this today to learn about networking. And networking is hard. Networking is weird. Networking gets a bad rap a lot of the times because oftentimes people either don't know how to do it, don't feel comfortable doing it, or do it wrong, to be honest. And networking is also sometimes it's not fun. It's the long play. It's like putting money into your 401k. Like, I'd much rather buy a new toy than put my money into a 401k. It's like going to the gym on a daily basis or dieting at times. Oftentimes, the day that we need networking is sometimes the day we're a little bit too late. I get calls all the time that are like, hey, who can I network with? I need a job. I'm like, at this point, you don't need to network. You just need to find a job. Or people are like, hey, I need a network. I need to sell. I'm like, okay, you don't need to network then. You just need to sell. And so right out of the gate, I want to make a big differentiation between selling and networking. Those are two completely different things. Both are extremely important and both can be well done, but oftentimes when they're mixed, that's when the networking gets the bad rap, and that's when the overzealous person, I'm going to say guy, it's the guys are usually the overzealous ones in the networking events, push it too hard and it doesn't feel natural. And so the number one most important thing with networking is, what is your intent? Why are you there? Before you walk into any networking, either whether it be a lunch, a golf outing, an event, you need to ask yourself, what is my intent and why am I there that day? And honestly, if it's, hey, I need to sell, then you should probably stay in your car and just call people and follow up on old leads. If it's, hey, I want to meet 2 new people and reconnect with 2 old people, which is, by the way, the goal that I set every time I go into a networking event, then walk in. You need to say, and your mindset needs to be that of helping other people, of providing other people value. Keith Ferrazzi, who's written a lot of great relationship building books, says every time he goes to meet with one person one-on-one, he says he walks in with five potential gifts of generosity he could give the other person. And that moment of slowing down and saying, like, hey, what could I do to give that person? And if your product can't be one of those 5 things, it needs to be something else besides that. Melanie, Kathy, Nate, at any point, if you have any questions, please stop me. I want this to be a collaborative discussion. The first thing with networking that I really want to make a differentiation of is when I say personalizing versus making personal, what comes to mind? How do you differentiate those two? The difference between personalizing versus making personal. How would you answer? Like, what thoughts come to mind with that? Anybody? Nate, what comes to mind for you?
So I think of like personalizing, maybe like internalizing, and I think like making personal is maybe external, like it's the way that like I'm communicating with somebody and I'm making it personal, and that's kind of like external. It's my way of getting through to someone else. But personalizing, I guess, would be like how you internalize something. Those are my thoughts.
You must be a deep thinker. I don't know if I've ever had that answer to that, but I love it, and thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else, Melanie or Kathy, any thoughts between the difference between, I'll give you a couple examples and then I want to hear your thoughts on that. So in our business, we do a lot of events, and we host events at all over the place, and privileged to go to some really cool places and some really nice places. And typically it's my name on the contract. And so when it's my name on the contract, I usually get a card in my room when I check in from the event planner, right? It's probably part of their normal routine. Like, oh, he's the guy that's paying us. Let's send him a nice note. I would say personalizing is when they print out a note that I can see it's totally generic, but they did put my name on it, and they did give me the same slogan of thank you, yada, 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 that they give everybody, and then they sign it, right? They personalize that. However, sometimes those gifts are mints or alcohol. I don't drink alcohol and I hate mints. And so that gift is personalized because it has my name on it, but they didn't really make it personal. So it's not super memorable. 2 weeks ago, we had an event at the Montage up in Deer Valley. The amazing lady that checked us in, that walked me and my wife to our room, noticed that, oh, my wife's 8 months pregnant. Not hard to notice. But she also asked us if we had other kids at home. And she asked us what we were planning on doing. My wife's number one goal was to take a bath and to take a nap. And she learned that we were having a second baby boy and we had a 2-year-old at home. Within a half hour of checking us in, we had a handwritten note, 2 stuffed animals for our baby boy that was 2, our baby boy that was coming, and bath salts delivered to our room. So when I say the difference between making personal and personalize something, there is a drastic difference. Too often we just personalize things by just checking a name or giving out a generic gifts or creating a template that we give to everybody. But what do you, I mean, if that happened to you guys, like what type of impact does, well, if I share those 2 different stories, as far as creating loyalty and creating a relationship, how big of a difference is personalizing versus making personal for you guys?
I think it's huge because the second one shows that they care about you and you're not just a number. You're not a standard, customer, that they care about you, that you're important to them.
And how much longer did the montage example take versus the other one? And how much more money? Guess what? The other ones, they were giving me gifts. It didn't cost any more money. And it may have taken 3 to 5 more minutes. But the thing is, they slowed down. So you with Melanie, right? How do you apply this to maybe your own students there, right? Do you know when their birthdays are? Do you know when like different, at martial arts, you have different stages, right? So you have a built-in way to celebrate, right? There's a book called The $6 Egg. And in there's a principle that's called make every milestone magical. And so how do we, at maybe a different stage when they reach like a different level of martial arts, or shoot, if you're a banker, right, they paid off their car loan. Like whenever your key relationships create a new milestone, for us as the provider, it happens every day. So it's not a celebration. But for the end user, it's a massive celebration that they've worked a lot for. And so making those different milestones magical is a big deal. So I hope that's really the importance of intent. Right? It's like if you met 2 doctors and one doctor just talked to you super analytically and the other doctor like asked your name and got to know your family. And then you said, hey, who do you want to do surgery on you? You would pick the nice doctor before you asked their skill set, which is stupid, right? If you're going to get somebody to like have surgery on you, you should ask their skill set. But that's just an example just to show how much we value when somebody makes it personal for you. So that's your intent. The next one is, where do we network? This one's hard because there's a million different places to go. And right now it's even more awkward because you don't know, like, are people having events? Are they not having events? So let's talk in a normal world, and then we'll talk in a COVID world. Where someone should network, number one should be, what are your hobbies? You should never go somewhere where you feel uncomfortable. You want to put your, and it's not because you necessarily want to put your best foot forward, is you want to be in an environment where you're comfortable. Because when you're comfortable, you then become authentic, and then it's easy to meet people. I'd also go where all of your clients are. If you network somewhere, and let's say the majority of the room are already clients, there is no better place to go. Because you're going to have advocates, ambassadors, or at every single table or in every single conversation in the room. And they're going to say, oh, hey, see Melanie over there? Like, she's awesome, and let me tell you why. You're going to have a built-in infrastructure of ambassadors. So I would 100% go where your current clients are. And then also go where your target clients are. Like, know who is your ideal demographic and know where they go, and go there. That still means you have to have good intent while you're there, but it's also okay to have strategy behind where you go.
Logan, can I give you kind of an example about
yes,
that?
Please do.
This is what was taught to me from the former economic development manager. He said, when wherever we can to use our local Orem businesses. You know, don't go outside of Orem, but that's a great way to network when we need services, when the city needs services, to use them. So we've had occasions where we take developers out to lunch. And on one occasion, I took them out to lunch, kind of thinking in the back of my mind that this particular restaurant wanted to open a second restaurant. So I brought these developers in. They were just talking to me about what options throughout the city, and they weren't necessarily in restaurant development. But then the conversation started with them networking with the restaurant owner. And so I think you're right. When we go places where clients are or like people are, then the networking kind of naturally happens.
Well, and what was natural was the authenticity. That was a very curated event. Like, and that's good because you did it with good intent, right? You brought people together. You brought people into a restaurant. You made a connection, right? And you pre-planned value, right? And you, because of that, you created that little one of, like Keith Frazee said, of generosity to people. That is amazing. Connecting people together for win-win situations is what creates that those authentic moments. I can't talk. Now, where do you network in a COVID world? Some people, like if there are events, go to them if you feel inclined. The hardest thing about today's world is understanding what the other person's level of comfort is, and respecting that level of comfort. Right? We have clients where I've gotten on a plane with them and I've flown places. I have clients that still only want to do virtual events. And you know what? That might continue for another 6+ months. And that's okay. And the goal is to provide people different opportunities to their comfort level. And I would ask, honestly, and I would just ask and be open and not express any opinions whatsoever and be extremely accommodating. The other thing in networking that I would do right now is, like, the hottest topics are the COVID and the election. I wouldn't talk about either. I would stay away from any polarizing topics. You know, it's weird as the day where religion in Utah is probably third on the list of the most polarizing topic. But those are definitely topics that it does no good. Your goal is to bring down barriers, not to put up barriers. Honestly, in the time of COVID, I would use this as a time to reconnect with old relationships and to strengthen existing relationships. In terms of building new relationships, I would join different webinars. I would reach out to people. I would engage in communication, Zoom calls. I would join everything that you can. But honestly, my first priority right now would be to engaging in reconnections rather than new connections. I'd maybe let your marketing and sales do its job with new connections. As far as networking, I would focus until people like you guys are hosting events that people can attend in person again. I would focus on reconnections in your existing connections. There are some organizations out there that are hosting live events. And if you feel comfortable doing that, then I would go to those and to try and procure those new relationships. Now, my last point is follow-up is king. It is through some research, right? But 88% of people do not follow up after networking events. And the 12% of people that do follow up after networking events probably do it really poorly, turn a networking event into a sales pitch. And so how do you follow up? And your goal is to just follow up with value, value, value. I'll give you an example. I had 2 real estate agents that each called me every month for a year. You could tell I was on their list of people that they thought could give them referrals, right? Totally fine. Real estate agent number one would call me and give me a market update on his market, not on my market, and then ask me if it was time for me to buy a house or if I knew anybody else that was looking to buy or sell a house. Real estate agent number two called me, asked me how my business was going, asked me who was in my sales pipeline, and asked me for their phone numbers, and then called those people to recommend Corporate Alliance at the time, or Truss now, and then said, hey, anything else I can do for you? And then all of a sudden I was like, well, wait, what can I do for you? It's like, oh, nothing, like totally good. So when it came time for me to buy a house or for me to refer somebody to buy a house, did I call real estate agent number one or number two?
Two.
Number two. And so you need to follow up with value. And if you're looking to get somebody's time, you need to give them enough value that is more important than what they're currently doing. And if someone's trying to sell to like keep their business afloat, like their time's pretty valuable. So if you want their time, you have to give them something that it's perceived to be more valuable than what they're doing. An example, two life insurance guys invited me to two different events. First of all, life insurance, I hate if someone that sells life insurance is on this call, you have a really boring product, and which makes it even more important for you to differentiate yourself, because everybody knows a guy that does it. Life insurance guy number one invited me to a lunch and learn at Sizzler. I'm a foodie. I only go to Sizzler with my grandma. And so sitting through a Sizzler lunch with a life insurance at the time, to give you perspective, I was 30 years old and single. And so I'm like, that's miserable. He was a friend. So what did I say? Oh no, thanks, I'm busy. Good luck with your event. So anytime somebody says, hey, no, thanks, I'm busy, what they're really saying is, hey, what you're offering me is not valuable enough for me to stop what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Like brass tacks, that's what they're saying. Life insurance guy number two calls me up and says, hey, Logan, I know it's a long time, but Friday afternoon, I've got ski passes up to Sundance. Do you care to join me? Absolutely. So life insurance guy number one, I was too busy to take an hour. But life insurance guy number two, I magically had 6 hours open up on Friday because he was offering value. So that, I mean, really in short, it's what is your intent? Where and who are you networking with? And just kill them with value. I think the last comment I'll leave with you, and then we can, any questions, is the number one element in war is also the number one strategy in relationship building. And that is the element of surprise. The more you can surprise somebody, the more memorable you will be. Final example there. We're going to go into a holiday season, and a lot of people are going to debate whether they do their holiday gifting. Budgets might be a little tight. Guess what? It's hard to differentiate yourself, and it's hard to bring the element of surprise when it's in the holidays and people are getting 24 holiday gifts. You have to spend an absurd amount of money in order to do that. Now, somebody that did an element of surprise, this was several years ago, but I remember it. It was August 31st. BYU was playing Washington State. It was the first game of the year. They left a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper and a dozen Shirley cinnamon rolls on my desk and said, have fun at the Cougar kickoff today. That was a surprise. Who gives gifts on the season opener of the college football season? And so, again, the number one strategy in relationship building is the number one strategy in war is the same as the number one strategy in relationship building, and that is the element of surprise, right? And it works in our personal relationships as well, right? You're going to get more credit if you bring flowers home on random Thursday than you are on Valentine's Day.
Or your
Valentine's
anniversary.
Day or your anniversary. You are merely meeting expectations. But on a random Thursday, it is a great element of surprise. And it's the same. So any questions? What thoughts or questions do you guys have?
I've got a question. So something that you hit on earlier that kind of opened my mind to more possibilities. So you kind of talked about like celebrating the milestones, right? And that's like something with your customers. And so I started thinking like, man, I've been thinking about networking all wrong when we could be kind of like networking with our customers more, right? That's just building relationships. And so how can we so how can like building value and building those stronger relationships with our current customers lead to future customers?
So let me take it back a step to say the value of keeping a client versus the value of adding a new client. I had a CFO once that did the math for me, and he showed me, he wrote on a piece of paper 4-to-1. And basically that was almost the value of maintaining a client versus getting a new client. And it was like 4 times more expensive to get a new client. But yet we spend most of our efforts getting new clients rather than maintaining our current clients. And that equation is different for each business depending on their acquisition of a new client. And there's no easier sell than a referral from your own client. And so really it's making those moments magical and delighting them along the way. I mean, an example like a restaurant. I was in Washington, D.C. We were right there on Georgetown. There's a ton of restaurants. There was one restaurant that we really, really wanted to go to. They told us it was a 90-minute wait. We were like, oh, I'm hungry. Put the name on the list and let's go see what the wait is down the street. You know, we waited there 20 minutes and then we started to get hungry, and then they walked out with some garlic knots and they said, hey, thank you so much for waiting. Like, why don't you eat this while you're waiting? Okay, great. So I'm like, all right, gave us enough energy to wait because we tasted it. It was super good. So we stuck around. Then they brought out like really tiny pieces of pizza a half hour later. Then a half hour later, they brought out drinks. And so all of a sudden they were like delighting us every step of the way. And so whatever your client is, I would sit down and like analyze that process and know, okay, how are you surprising them or delighting them or making those milestones magical along the way? And then people will naturally sing your praises. And then the biggest thing to do with asking for like referrals is to ask. That is simply the biggest thing to do. But you want to ask when you've given so much value that it's easy. There's nothing wrong with asking. We only get offended when people ask when they haven't provided enough value yet.
Logan, I think there were 2 key things that you touched on in some of your stories. One was to go someplace that you're comfortable, because usually when we're comfortable, we kind of put other people at ease around us. And that's when people talk, is when we're natural and when we feel comfortable. And the second thing you touched on is listening, because when you were talking about your experience with the hotel, the check-in agent, she was listening and she was observing and she was watching. So she asked you questions about, you know, your family, and she noticed your wife was expecting a baby, and she remembered and she put it all together. So is that really a key part of us being a good networker, is observing and listening and just letting things be natural so that people feel comfortable talking? Is that really key?
Yep, 100%. I mean, that's the only really way to make things personal, is to know what's personal to them.
Mm-hmm. And that builds trust.
Faster than anything.
So I actually have a question on the, what book did you say it was called? About celebrating the milestones?
Oh, it's called the $6,000 egg.
$6,000 egg?
The $6,000 egg.
Okay.
Got a lot of really, really great principles in there.
Well, it's like you said, yeah, we celebrate milestones and it's been hard. We had to be kind of, be creative how we celebrate kids on their new belt, and, kind of, it's been, interesting, but they still want it. They still, it's like it's a big deal for them. So that's kind of something that I'm glad that we continue doing, but, it's good to have that, it's like, yes, celebrating milestones is, something we should keep doing. So.
Absolutely.
So can you give us an example of a good way to follow up to offer service if you're just kind of on a simple level of knowing someone? How do you know what to give? How do you know what type of, a service or a helpful something? How do you know?
I think that's what you said earlier about listening is so important. You have to come away, even if the conversation's short, you have to come away with something. Bits of pieces of information, even if it's likes, dislikes. And it could be something as trivial as sports teams, restaurants. I'm actually, the more personal, the better, right? If you know someone's going on a trip, you can send them a restaurant recommendation of where they're going. Like if you don't know what to say, you didn't either listen enough or you haven't done enough research. People expose a lot of their lives on social media, and it's okay to use it to your advantage. And you can read, poke, prod, like scope, like to do anything that they put out there in private to help you educate yourself on what they value and use that in your follow-up. We always think we're like hesitant to do that because we're like, oh, that might freak us out. That might freak them out. That seems creepy. But yet when people to do it to us, we're like crazy validated. And so, yeah.
Yep.
Well, Kathy basically asked my question too. So any more questions, Kathy or Melanie, anything else that, or Peter? Oh, there's Peter.
I don't have any more questions, but I thought it was great, the presentation, the networking. So thanks for sharing
Thanks,
it.
Peter.
And I think I have seen you before. I used to go to Corporate Alliance, so a few years ago.
Awesome. That's cool. We love UVU. You guys do an awesome job.
Thanks.
All right. Well, Logan, do you have anything else you'd like to add, or ready to wrap this up?
No, just be memorable and remember that networking is different than sales and marketing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Logan, for talking with us. You've given us a lot of great ideas and great examples. Got a whole page of notes that I've taken. Got a lot that could help small businesses out there. So we're really glad that we're able to hear from Logan today. Yeah, I guess this concludes our October Orem Business Alliance webinar. Thanks for everyone for showing up, and we will put this up on YouTube soon and send this out to all of our businesses. Thanks again, Logan, and thanks for everyone who showed up today. Hope that everyone has a great day.
Thank you, Logan.
Together. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.